You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
Oh, he's mixing it up on take two. My name's Rob. Threw me for a loop there, although I actually expected it, and you have no idea what I'm talking about. Nonetheless, super glad that you're hanging out with us. Super glad that many of you take the time to go to AskDroneU.com and send in your questions. We appreciate it very much, and just know that, obviously, this has no chance of being successful without your participation. So thank you.
Yes, we really do. Thank you. Really grateful, actually, this holiday season, as typically during the holiday season, very, very happy-go-lucky. I love this part of the year. Typically precedes one of the most depressing parts of the year before we get into one of the best parts of the year, which is spring, in my opinion. But that being said, I'm seeing a lot of friends going through some difficult times right now, and it's really made me kind of take a look on the other side, as I need to give people compassion and empathy anyways. But it just made me think, when you're out there this holiday season, remember what the holiday season is about. There are obviously a couple different what the holiday season is about, if that makes sense, depending on your religious beliefs. But that being said, one of the biggest things that I understand is that, the holiday season is about giving, it's about appreciating other people, and it's about putting other people before ourselves. And I would say just try to remember that when you're out shopping, when you're out doing things. It's easy to get impatient because, we want to make sure that we have a great reputation with our family and we're always doing the right thing. But sometimes it's almost too self-serving. And I oftentimes find myself and other people caught in that never-ending loop. Yeah. And I think it's just so important, before we get into our drone topics today, that we give people empathy, because I think it's going to help everyone as a whole. But anyway, I'm off of my my preacher stage. I'm off the...
It's a great reminder. I appreciate that.
I'm off the steeple, yes. But anyway, so remember, give someone compassion. Do something that makes you uncomfortable today, so you're constantly challenging yourself and growing intellectually. And then start thinking about how all the ways that you failed to reach your goals this year, because I doubt everyone hit their New Year's goals this year. So how did you fail? I want you to focus on failing, because failing doesn't mean that you're going to fail continuously. But
Nor does it mean you are a failure.
Correct. But if you really want to make a change this year, I think in order to do that, you're going to have to look at the actions that you took towards those goals and figure out why you didn't reach your goals if you didn't reach them. If you did reach your goals, what did you do? Was it discipline? Was it habits? Was it some sort of trigger, like a calendar invite? What was it that worked? That's what I want to ask you. Anyway, let's get into today's show, which is actually pretty exciting. If you missed out on the Black Friday / Cyber Monday deals from Drone U, well then I'm sorry. That's unfortunate. But that being said, really do appreciate the support from everyone else. The community continues to grow, and excited to get some new classes going. Actually, I already have one in the queue, in the hopper, as they would say, and excited to get this solar inspection class out. But that aerial photography class, while a lot of people think that aerial photography is just the easiest part of being a drone pilot, it's been really fascinating to see the level of humbleness coming out of the community, saying, I've learned, I've been a photographer 10 years and I learned something from this. So great job. So
yeah, for sure. We have the benefit of that class being taught by our very own Vic Moss, who is an award-winning 30-year plus photographer, right? So, yes. And even he's learning new stuff every day. I mean, that's inevitable because of all the new equipment, for example. So yeah, it's a great course and getting great feedback. And so check that out if you haven't already.
I'm a beginner drone pilot with a new Mavic Mini. What are the advantages that I have being under 250 grams? Is it just not having to pay $5 and not having to identify my drone with a tag on it? There's got to be more than that. What's the big advantage? Or maybe disadvantage?
Thanks, Pete. I like the way you asked that question. Leaving both sides open, advantages and disadvantages. Of course, in a case like this, there are always going to be both. I think that doesn't matter what drone we're talking about or what thing we're talking about. Pros and cons to just about everything in life. And before we dive into answering your question, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to go to astronew.com and ask. We appreciate it. So, yeah, so if you put the guards on, by the way, is it still the prop guards? Is it still under 250 grams?
No.
Okay. So
You want to know something really funny?
always.
This is the
I like
drone
humor.
DJI gave us.
Mm-hmm.
It came registered.
Yeah.
That is the first time I've ever seen that.
Yeah, because I remember the text. Why did you register the drone?
Oh no, I was like pissed. I was like, who claimed ownership of this thing? Like, and it was still in the box. I was like, someone on our team is playing a really good joke on me right now. So
Not intentionally. No, it came that way for sure. But yeah, so advantages. Number one, what is the reality about being under 250 grams relative to registering and not registering, et cetera?
You know, that's a great question, and glad you asked it, Rob, because there's a lot of confusion out there. It's extremely simple, and yet the YouTubers have done just such a good job of confusing it. But you know what? I'm actually grateful about that, because it really goes to show the level and depth of knowledge of YouTubers on YouTube, and goes to show why having practical information is so valuable. But one of the things that's important to understand is that when the drone is below 250 grams, so it's 249 grams, then in the United States, all that means is that you do not have to register the drone. Like literally, that's all it means. As far as hobbyist, or as the FAA would like us to say, recreational pilots are concerned, everyone in the United States still does have to comply with any regulations from the FAA. Now,
Sure.
if you heard our show with Transport Canada, it was actually very interesting how kind of towards the end of the show, the guy from Transport Canada just kind of said, you know, Mavic Mini is in our micro drones rule and isn't subject to any of our regulations. He had kind of dodged the question earlier. So when he said that, I like had to sit there and focus on it. I'm like, so, okay, if I fly into Canada as an American or as anyone who's not Canadian, I can take a Mavic Mini with me and fly it, and it's not subject to the same rules as all your other drones. Nope. And what about hobbyist or commercial purposes in Canada? He's like, yeah, we don't differentiate between that. He's like, you're flying or you're not, period. I was like, well, I really like that.
Appreciate that for sure. Yeah.
Damn it, Canada and your common sense. And anyway, if you add a lick of anything, I mean, you add 1 gram to this thing, and you do have to register it. Now, while I think that this is actually a really cool drone to have if you are traveling a lot and you're going to a country that has a micro drone rule and essentially eliminates this particular drone from any regulations, there is a lot of value in that. There really is a lot of value in that. But in all honesty, Rob, I really think to myself, like, I've got a trip coming up here, and one of the biggest problems that I have is I overpack. I'm not like my wife where I overpack in clothing, I overpack in gear.
Yeah.
I just want to have everything with me.
Just, you never know.
You really don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. So anyway, long story short, I was sitting here and I was like asking myself, if I were to go to Canada and I really wanted to get some photos, would I really take this with me? Or would I just like nut up, do the paperwork, and fly the Mavic 2 Pro? Or a Phantom, for example. If I was doing any video, I'd have to take the Phantom. Mavic 2 Pro wouldn't cut it. But, and I just thought to myself, and I was like, personally, and I'm sure a lot of you may disagree with this, personally, I would not take one of these. If I had to stick to one drone, I would probably suck it up and stick to the Mavic 2 Pro, even though as far as video is concerned, the Phantom is just so much better. But also a lot of people and a lot of, noob amateur pilots really don't understand this, and it's extremely difficult / impossible to explain on YouTube. This drone cannot do a natural banking turn on the move. So you're extremely limited in what cinematic shots that you can really get with this drone.
Why is that?
It's something to do with the yaw. I think it's the overspin value. I'm not sure because I can't get into the drone to change any of those parameters, which is unfortunate. Hoping that No Limits Drones comes out with something here pretty soon because I couldn't figure out how to get inside of it. So I don't mean physically inside of it. I mean software controls. Anyway, long story short, I've heard a lot of other advantages. This is a great confined space drone. Could not disagree with that more. Because the auto landing can't be turned off, and you're constantly, if you're truly flying in confined space and not just a hallway, but you actually like need to fly into like a tunnel, or let's say you need to fly into the rafters of a warehouse or something.
Sure.
This drone is not good for that. I would actually prefer Mavic Air. And it's funny because the prop cage is so big on this thing, it really doesn't offer the protection that you think it would. You get so much more protection out of the Mavic Air. But the other thing is too, you see how I already broke the props?
Oh, look at that.
And it's inside the prop cage. So it's really a poorly designed prop cage.
It is.
I honestly don't know, but look how big the openings are on the bottom. So when, you've got guys out there and, I'm not trying to like trash your personality because I don't really care about that, but I do care about giving people the right information. And there are guys out there who are utilizing their titles at certain public agencies saying that this thing is amazing for confined space. I could not disagree more.
And by the way, that's been tested in our indoor course, right?
Yeah.
So, which is a pretty confined space.
True.
Granted.
Which also people say, the radio range on this is spectacular, and I'm just like, in the middle of nowhere. Typically, whenever we fly a Mavic Air or a Mavic Pro, right when we get to the far side of the office and entering in the final tunnel, typically we get like just a little bit of lag. There's like a good 2-second delay from your inputs to the drone. This drone, the feed just dropped out completely. So the Mavic Air, for some reason, has a stronger signal. But that being said, people are saying it's really great range. I disagree with that. I don't think it's actually that great of range.
At least not in our experience with this particular bird.
True. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, like, okay, I'm at such a crossroads here, Rob, because is there value to bringing this drone? Let's say that, like, Jake, let's take Jake, right? And let's say he's got his backpack, he's headed to Canada, or he's headed to some other country that has a micro drone rule. Is this a great vehicle to just throw in his backpack and get some guilt-free photos? And I call him guilt-free because he's not going to have to worry about the law. I will say if a police officer does come up to you, it's going to be a lot harder explaining what you're doing if you don't quite know the law. So again, always look into the law wherever you're going. But that being said, he could throw this thing in his backpack and just get a couple Instagram shots. It's just that they're not going to have anywhere near the dynamic range, detail, or look of any other drone. So that's why, I'm like, yeah, I see why people, are excited about this, but there's a lot of hype. So if you're trying to, where would this provide value as a commercial user? I guess I'm trying to think of all the different ways to think about value. Mm-hmm. If you're in Canada and if you need to go to Canada as an American, this is the drone to take, clearly. If you're going to another country with a micro rule that doesn't have regulations against these drones, great. I still, though, I have a hard time believing that just because that is the case, that you're going to be able to fly wherever you want and not have an issue. In some countries, I still think if you fly this thing in what's called controlled airspace, I still think some law enforcement officer is going to say, I know there's no rules against micro drones, but you still can't fly here, because a lot of policing comes down to interpretation, and honestly, interpretation is reality at that given moment, unfortunately. But I'm just saying that, I don't know. I don't see all the value. Sorry, Rob, to interrupt you. I just thought it was important to say that you cannot expect to go to another country, fly one of these, and think that you'll be totally okay. You could still be confronted. It's important to know the law. They could still shut you down for other reasons. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, you're fine. I was curious, is the micro drone cut off 250 grams in Canada? Mm-hmm. So, okay, so it's, at least that's consistent as far as what's understood here. As far as registering it, if you go over 250 grams.
You do have to register it.
Right. The prop guards make it, no doubt, over 250 grams, but we would only use the prop guards inside.
Correct, which
Therefore,
is not the FAA's jurisdiction.
Right.
But if you ever fly it outside, it's supposed to be registered. Okay, that being said, I just totally forgot an extremely important point. If you are a Part 107 pilot and you buy a Mavic Mini, you have to register the drone. Yeah.
Explain.
It's a long-winded train of thought that I think hopefully I still have it in here from Vic, but long and the short of it is it's like still required under some very interesting old detail of the law. Let's see if I can find that image. Hold on. I'm going through all of my images with, here it is. Okay. Section 44809 directs you to register your UAS as required and provided for under Part 48. Thus, the less than 0.55 pound rule applies. This is what someone from the FAA was telling us about group administrators of other groups in Facebook, which is, again, they're getting so bad, you got to be careful. But blank and blank are skipping over section 91.203 and section 47.31, which require registration regardless of weight. He said, quote unquote, I've explained this to people, and they won't let the idea go that all of Part 48 applies. It doesn't. The FAA legal team has confirmed this. So if you're a Part 107 pilot, you better register that thing.
Very interesting. But at that point, I mean, unless you're going to be using it for something you shouldn't be using it for, everything else you have is registered essentially, right? So just register the
I would
darn
have
thing.
registered this, but it's under someone else's name.
We don't even know who.
No idea.
Huh.
Maybe I should sell this on the black market. Oh, and then someone stole my freaking hack thing. Thanks, Aldrin. Saw that you saw my story about this, about how to get attitude mode inside. You just cover it up with tape.
So, okay,
All my
let me
ideas
get this
keep getting
right.
stolen on
Let me
me.
get this right. Hack thing,
It's not even a hack. It's
whatever.
a freaking piece of tape.
It's okay. Instagram story, and now it's stolen. It sounds to me like you gave it.
Maybe I did.
I think it's pretty clear you did.
Maybe I did. Yep. Maybe I did.
Good stuff.
Well-
Good stuff. So advantages, disadvantages.
I just hate that because I'm like trying to help people and then it gets smushed in my face.
How did it get? I'm confused.
And don't worry about it.
Okay,
it's
I
not
won't worry
important.
about it.
Not important.
Not important at all.
I was just trying to give some tips, and before we had a chance to release our video with all those tips, they'd already been given out by another person.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, so they used it as if, hey, check this out. Of course, here's the thing. I mean, with all due respect, and a lot of respect is due, it's not rocket science.
No, it's not.
So,
No.
anywho, so really, I guess
But
advantages.
the person didn't figure it out in his first 10 videos of the Mavic Mini, so just saying.
Hey, well, there's something to that. There's something to that.
Anyway, yes.
Or 3, but whatever. So advantages, obviously compact, right?
It's extremely compact.
I think that maybe goes without saying, but you're
like this-
asking for the advantages, and beyond that, and not registering it,
Kind of like the size of a phone.
It's got a solid camera, right? Not great,
Okay,
but
everyone keeps talking about this camera. It's actually really not a solid camera. It does not do 4K. The bit rate is very low.
oh,
It looks to me like an FPV camera off of an Inspire 2.
huh.
So again, there is value to this drone. Don't want to trash it. You know, I know they gave it to us to review it, and I greatly appreciate that. And again, there is value if you're traveling to areas. But I just think what do I love about this drone? It's caused a lot more excitement for the industry again. Meaning it's not just people in the industry that are excited, a lot of other people are excited about this. That means there's more excitement about the drone industry. It's great because it's going to normalize flying drones in other countries. That's very good for the drone industry because if a lot of people are just flying drones and it becomes a no big deal thing, that helps everybody, okay?
Sure.
So we all need to thank DJI for those 2 points because I think that's extremely important. Now, that being said, as far as a usable tool for a Part 107 pilot, you're not going to be competing with anyone currently out there by just using this.
Yeah, and I don't know that that was their intent ever, but it's certainly a good learner drone because the controls and everything are going to be very similar to what you would be using for a Mavic Pro or a Phantom or any of that kind of stuff. So it's great for learning.
Yep.
Right? Relatively inexpensive to get into something like this that's going to be more similar than if you go buy a $50 drone off Amazon.
Yes, although this does feel like a $50 drone from Amazon. Just putting it out there. Like literally, it feels like a Frisbee. I feel like I could throw this thing like a Frisbee.
Well, yeah. I mean, trying to get it under 250 grams, it kind of had to be.
It's kind of it's a total feat of engineering too. Like, let's be honest.
It really is.
But yeah. Anyway, look. There are a lot of great things that come out of this drone.
Sure.
I think the number of benefits is reduced greatly if you're a 107 pilot. If you're a recreational pilot, you're flying it for fun. First of all, thanks for listening to this show. But do understand, you do have to register this drone if you add pretty much anything to it. I mean, even with a thick sticker, you're pushing, you're really questioning it. Also, I will say, you know, like the Analfi, I think that this is one of the most dangerous drones out there.
That's a big statement, dude.
I know it's a big statement.
Say more.
Well, first of all, you have no physical hardware switch for flight modes, okay? So you're always GPS dependent. You're always reliant on GPS, right? And then, you know, it doesn't have a lot of obstacle avoidance, actually really at all, other than the lower obstacle avoidance. There's no way to go into attitude mode. There's no physical hardware switch, so you couldn't like eliminate GPS if you were having a flyaway. There's virtually no way to stop a flyaway.
So by dangerous, you mean essentially, I mean, because this isn't going to do much damage to anything other than maybe somebody's nose, right?
So you know what? This is why I love this show, is because you always bring up points that I really don't think about, and I'm really grateful for that. But you know, is this going to hurt someone when it hits them? No. It's really not. Like, I would say with a high degree of confidence, if you were to hit someone, I think the worst thing that can happen is maybe like a centimeter deep laceration. But we already know the engineering that goes into DJI's propellers. They're made to break upon impact. So honestly, is it really the most dangerous drone? Probably not. But there are some things that I wish were in here. Like, again, I wish battery voltage is now off screen. Can't even look at it. So you really have no idea how good the battery really is on this thing. So there are a couple things that really make me question the viability of this. That being said, it's definitely a tool for some people, and everyone's different. Or a toy.
Yeah.
On that bombshell, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks, Rob. My name is Paul.
My name is Rob.
This is Ask Drone U.